What changed the way you see your father? When I realized what alcoholism looks like. How could you tell? I've recently been thinking about him being alcoholic, but I can't tell. I work with my dad, and he tried to hide it, but he slurs a lot when he's into it. He also forgot about a lot of stuff, and would fall asleep during the workday. His emails and demeanor on general is different when he's sober versus drunk. I never worked out with my dad. He's a big guy. One day I did in my 20s, and I was lifting more weight. Learned 2 things. 1. My dad was getting older, which made me sad. Superman was starting to grade 2. His effort at everything he does is always 100%. This but with wrestling. At 21 I started to hold my own, and I think my dad realized that he would lose if he held back at all. By 23 or 24 I had to start going easy on him. Man, it's tough seeing dads get old. When my aunt told us that as a child he was tied up in the basement and beaten by his parents, my grandmother would tell my grandfather to hit him again. Hit him again. Apostrophe. He handled that abuse better than most. He turned in on himself mostly, and turned to alcohol to cope. Things also changed a lot when he apologized to me. My dad was not awful to me, but my mother was. My dad just wasn't around a lot dealing with his demons, and by then my parents were divorced. So he told me at one point that he was sorry. He didn't know how bad it was with my mom. I don't even know how he learned it was bad. Maybe my siblings told him when I ran away and was a missing person for a little bit. But I have no idea. Close bracket. He'll never understand how people can have children just to use them as punching bags and to take all of their own life failures into them. My grandparents were godly people trying to ensure their child did not go to hell or be influenced by the devil. They were very, very wrong, but their horrific acts came from a place of love. I can't be angry at them. People in this world are either showing love or crying out for it. My dad had a very, very difficult upbringing, and while he always told me he loved me and was affectionate, I didn't really get how proud of me he was until the day after I graduated from high school. He woke me up with breakfast in bed, my diploma in his hand, tears in his eyes. He told me he was so proud of me and that he hadn't graduated high school. I hadn't known this previously because he didn't want me to feel pressure to do things just because he hadn't. I saw him as someone other than just my dad for the first time. A guy with hopes and dreams and fears all his own. He's a great guy. I'm lucky that he's my dad. One day in my mid-20s we got drunk together and had a heart-to-heart. He told me his side of the story of his marriage to my mother and how she cheated on him and how he just bore it and went to work to earn money even in the face of her not hiding it. I was too little to understand at the time. Always thought he was just distant and too stoic to show feelings. He cared too much about me to let the abuse get in the way of him earning money for us. Edit for grammar. I hope you gave him a call after typing that. Time. Scared of him as a kid. Hated him as a teen. Now I think he's just a pathetic little man who fucked up his own life and took it out on his family. Being there the day he got word his mother was dying of cancer, I'd seen the man tear up a lot throughout the years, but had never seen him sob. That was when I realized we're all just children. When I lost my mother, several years after my father, I was in my 40s and my wife pretty much laughed at me. About 10 years after my mother had died, she had lost her mother and father as well. Over 5 years between them. She said the exact same thing to me. Neither of our kids ever met my father. We waited too long to have kids, and he died before both of them were born, and I will regret that until my dying day. Bro, she laughed at you for crying. Why would she remain your wife? Sounds more like an enemy. I lost all respect for a girl for saying my dog is just a dog when he died. In the last 5 years of his life he saw his wife, my mom, die, and suffered a stroke a couple years later. Watching a man who used to be a confident go-getter slowly go to pieces over that time was the hardest thing I ever had to watch. Part of it is, when I grew up and left the house, he started treating me different, in a good way. I'm blessed with parents who cared for me enough to discipline me when growing up and be actual parents. But since I've been out on my own, it's been different. They started treating me like an adult and close friend who they cared for, rather than parental figures. that my dad spent a lot of time teaching himself calculus in the hopes that when I was struggling, which I did frequently, I would reach out to him and he would be able to help. But I was always too prideful to ask for help. I didn't know he was doing that until a few years after, and it broke my heart to know that he put in the time to learn, and I never came to him for help. I understand the negative emotions you feel around this, and while they're valid, I'd encourage you to focus on the positives of it. I don't know the kind of brain your dad had, but calculus is hard, especially to be self-taught. Whether you went to him or not is irrelevant at this point. It was really cool of him to make sure he could be there if you needed, and I hope he was proud of you for handling it, even if it caused you to struggle. When you found out, did you tell him how much that means to you? If he's still around, you might remind him. I know that would melt my heart to hear from my kid. I'm now the age he was when I thought he knew everything and could kick anyone's ass. I don't know shit about duck, and it took me 30 minutes to get out of bed this cold but morning. When I stopped taking his insults to heart and started treating him like a mentally unstable person. Finding out that he had cheated on my mom for 20 plus years. Discovering that the elderly woman he worked for was actually his sugar mama. Getting letters from other women claiming he hurt them. Finding out he gave our family barely enough money for food because he was spending it all on strippers and other women. Reading his text messages where he tells women he has a different name and claimed to have cancer, he didn't, and that his kids disowned him. Basically just learning that I had no idea who he was changed everything. Also, his secret boat made me a little scared. I'm so sorry you went through all that. And a secret boat? Yep. He wasn't happy I found out about that one. He was dying, but wanted to make sure that he finished building a small consignment shop for my mom to survive on. He balanced a nail with two fingers and asked me to hammer it. Stupid me completely missed the nail and hammered his thumb really hard. He didn't even flinch and asked me to try again. Later I saw his purple thumbnail and felt so awful. He was so determined to make that shop open before his death. About a month after completion, it was cherry blossom season. He took my mom out for sightseeing. After lunch he took a nap and had a stroke while sleeping. He lasted 2 days. We all thought it's his liver that will take him, but he got lucky and got the stroke instead. A well-deserved death for an honest man. That 3 months of working with him showed me what fathers can do for their family. We weren't close. I, only son, was a disappointment to him. Instead of words, which never worked, he showed me by actions to straighten me up. It worked. When I allowed myself to view his behavior as abusive, rather than normal for every family. This has been my big struggle lately. I'm home for the holidays, after a precautionary quarantine, and it's really hitting home for me in the last couple weeks, that despite his immense caring and willingness to help, he's still a bully, and he's still verbally abusive. It's always been that way. I've just always been passive to his as I've been a kid. As I've grown into a man myself, it's stopped being normal, and it's really started to disgust me. I'm having a hard time coming to grips with how shitty I think that is, without letting it sour the good memories I have of my old man. It's hard to separate the good and the bad. Same here, but with my mum. It's a hard road to travel. I grew up in a large, happy home. I have 6 siblings. My father was very religious. We were Russian Orthodox. My dad was a deacon, in the choir, and involved in religious education programs at our church. After I went away to university, I eventually came out to the family. Everyone was very supportive. My father eventually was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. During his final year, when I was up for the holidays, he wanted to get together for dinner. I agreed. My father disclosed that he was molested by his stepfather as a child and had been secretly in the closet for years. He explained how proud he was of me for coming out and being myself, while regretting that he never had the courage to do so, but that he would never trade his family for anything. I was stunned, to say the least. He passed away shortly thereafter, and I plan to take the information to my grave. Holy shit, bro. Have always had a lot of self-doubt. Always thinking everybody can do anything, and I could do nothing. Always thought I was hiding it really well and not complain, because who'd want to know, and maybe even more afraid that someone would confirm it to be indeed the truth. When I left to go to university, my dad drove me to the train station, and while we were waiting for the train to arrive, he out of the blue said, "You know, when I went to university my granddad told me if other people can do it, so can we." Made me realize he had been having the same feelings and his granddad before him. My husband, he doesn't yell at me or call me names or treat me like I'm stupid or hit me or hit our kids or scream and throw things. He doesn't put our kids in danger or think scaring us is funny. We don't get frightened when he comes home. We aren't afraid of him. For real. I thought all that was normal. I didn't know I thought it was normal. It took me many years to realize that my husband was treating us the way a normal person would treat their family. I still have trouble believing it sometimes, but I haven't seen my father or let him see my kids in over 5 years. I'm a slow learner, but I'm learning. My husband is also a good man, and I swear most of it is because he saw the bad and irresponsible things his parents did and resolved to always do just the opposite. A lot of people abandoned me after my daughter passed away, including him, after my angel went to heaven. It's like he didn't have a use for me anymore. I would try and check in, update him occasionally about my life and grief and work and all that, but more than half the time he wouldn't even respond. One day I realized that no matter how much I try to have a relationship with him, it takes two people. So I stopped trying. He doesn't seem to mind. I live 10 minutes away from him, and it's like he can't be bothered. My brother on the other hand, he lives 3+ hours away, and they are in constant contact. Also, my dad is on wife #3, and she is about a year older than I am, so she's 25, and she truly hates my guts. So there's that. When they first got together I defended her constantly. He seemed happy, so I was rooting for them, and I wanted others to do the same, and luck passed their age gap. However, one day out of nowhere she sat me down and told me she didn't like my relationship with my dad, and I need to show him more respect, and that she and I were not friends. But she definitely gets along with my brother. The three of them have matching tattoos and take trips together and do all this fun shit together. It sucks, man. It's been a very hard year and I cold use some support. I don't get how people mislead you into thinking they love you, only to suddenly change and start acting cold. Happened to me before, and I know how it feels. Stay strong. You don't need them. When his response to me wondering about the science behind something cool I saw as a kid was to insist it was a miracle from God and refuse to help me discover what environmental factors cause the phenomenon, the dad I had known up until that point would have encouraged my scientific curiosity. Read his memo which he wrote when his dad died 10 years ago. I only discovered it this year. My father has never really cried or shown radical emotions, but reading a memory of a broken man is something so powerful. Right after my mom's funeral he got rid of her cat. That's so sad. I hoped he found the cat a good home at least. Knowing him I doubt it. Most likely he had it euthanized. When I was old enough to see through his bullshit, he wasn't the victim of my mom trying to keep him from getting custody of me so she could keep getting those sweet child support checks, as he explained. When I would visit with him, he was a nearly 30-year-old man who knocked up a high school girl then abandoned her/us. He never even paid the child support anyway, and though she could have had him locked up she didn't. Also turns out he's done the same to at least 2 other women that I have come to find out about for sure. Mostly likely at least a couple more, but I stopped digging and dropped it nearly 15 years ago. I just don't have anything to do with him at all since that time. Growing up my dad and I butted heads all the time over the smallest things. They always ended in a yelling match, usually started by him, because he would always think that his way was the only way to do something, and he would never apologize. The way he would apologize is by doing something for you, like just going out and washing your car, and then that would be the end of it. He has always been a very pessimistic person as well. When I was 25 and I decided to buy my own home, he told me constantly that no bank would ever give me a loan because I didn't make enough. I on the other hand had looked at my finances and figured how much I could afford and told him, well, it won't hurt to take a look and see what happens. I was approved for a loan almost twice what I could afford. Him and my mom came with me looking for houses because I had no clue what to ask or what to look for, and they were very helpful when it came to thinking about something I would have never thought about. I found a place that was cheaper than what I could afford and was the best place I had seen. I jumped on it and it was a short sale. It took 5 months for the deal to go through, and every day my dad complained and told me I was never going to get it because you can't trust a short sale, that the bank is going to come back demanding more money, etc. None of which happened. I got the keys and my dad started to argue with me about the security door on the front and how I was locking it wrong, and he refused to leave the doorstep till I proved I locked it correctly. I just left him standing there calling him an idiot. My dad the next day left and flew to the East Coast to visit his family. I have no idea what went on over there, but when he came back he made a physical effort to change. He started telling me one day how funny I was and how smart and capable I was. It freaked me the duck out. When he was out of the room I asked my mom if he was dying or something, because it was so out of the norm for him to even tell me he loved me that I didn't even know what to do when it happened. That happened close to 10 years ago. I'm very proud of my dad. He worked hard to change his views and perspective on life and his reactions to things. My parents divorced about 4 years ago, and he moved in with me and lived with me until just this past September when he got remarried. We did not have an argument one time in the entire 4 years he lived with me. He worked very hard to be a better man and I couldn't be more proud of him. Another great story. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos.